All right, we get a slew of insider selling for November 20th specifically. We get it every time like clockwork, and I've covered this many times before, but this will be a refresher for some. So I'll first go through all the insider selling on November 20th since we get a bit more than CARP this round. But I'll also walk through CARP's remaining holdings as disclosed on Form 4 and an additional sale that didn't make it yet for that disclosure from CARP. So for all the non-CARP sales first, we've got Ryan Taylor selling 89,000 shares, David Glazer with 89,000 as well, Shyam Sankar, the CTO, sold 225,000 shares, and Stephen Cohen selling 405,000 shares. So in comparison to CARP and maybe Teal, these are much smaller, but do as you want with this information. Now for Alex Karp on November 20th, after that tiny 38K sale that I already made a post on, it looks like he made an additional sale for 585,000 shares. The reason I'm bringing this up first is because this transaction specifically didn't make it into the Form 4 that we'll go over that shows his remaining holdings. So essentially whatever's disclosed there, just subtract 500,000 shares. Now, before discussing CARP shares, you'll see there are a bunch of conversions. Essentially, this is a way to maintain their voting power while responsibly offloading. And note though, there are Class F shares that maintain the voting power overall, and this is held between Teal, CARP, and Cohen, which has 49.99% of the voting interest, even if it doesn't hold that in the value of the company. But Class B is also important because it represents 10 votes instead of Class A shares representing 1. Now onto the Form 4. Here's where I think a refresher is needed. This shows what is sold and is typically a grouping of transactions from a few days. It will also show the remaining shares per class of shares that were utilized in the transaction. For CARP, typically he exercises options to obtain Class B shares and then converts those over to Class A, which will then be sold on the open market. Sometimes he just converts Class B to A to sell, but as of recently, he's been doing this pattern, which I first described, exercising his employee stock options. So starting with Class A, we can see those transactions that have made it into the Form 4 with the 1 million, the 98,000, and the 38,000 share sale. Shown at the very bottom right corner is his remaining Class A at 6.4 million units. Then scrolling down to the conversions, we see that he has 106.5 million of his employee stock options remaining with 48.7 million Class B shares. Adding those all up, you could say at $60 per share, that's close to $9.7 billion, basically almost $10 billion for Alex Karp in these holdings. And for more context too, these are all sales due to his pre-existing trading plan down below in the explanation of responses. So this is business as usual. It just seems odd when people think a post about a sale means it's automatically bad news. Technically, it's just news for someone to determine what is acceptable to them, and that will be different for everyone. There's always the camp of any selling is bad since technically that adds sales pressure onto the open market. There's the others who both think it's fine up to a certain extent, and then some who don't care at all. So that's up to you to decide. If we see a slew of sales from me personally that's out of the ordinary and outside of the trading plans, that's when I get a bit more curious to know. But I think it's still important here to monitor the regularly planned sales, as it's important here technically that you can make an argument, even if extreme, why sell anything at all if you truly believe the company going all in and pay the taxes from say another source or whatever. But I'd say that's way out of the ordinary and shouldn't be reasonably expected, especially if your net worth has been tied up for 2 decades in a single company, but it's been seen before. But what are your thoughts down below? And I'll see you in the next video.